Welcome in, everybody, to the Week 8 NFL Power Rankings show. Feel like we're finally starting to get a little bit of a better grasp on the majority of these teams. Certainly still some teams here that I have no idea if they're good or bad. This has been the most fun season in terms of parity and trying to figure this thing out. So we have another good installment of the Power Rankings here today. Please do hit that like button as we head in. I really appreciate it. It really does help me out. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my weekly Power Rankings. We've got positional tier maker videos heading your way. The beginning of my Studs and Duds series next week. Lots of great stuff coming your way. So make sure you're subbed down below. Let's go ahead and get started. At the very bottom in the super mega booty tier, the Tennessee Titans keeping their bottom spot. They got the ding dong, the witch is dead. We fired our head coach bump for about 20 minutes in this game. I'll give Cam Ward some credit. He made some pretty damn good throws in this game until he, sacked himself, fumbled the ball over to the other team for a touchdown. Second week in a row he's done play just like that, so don't love to see that, but yeah, Titans are still the worst team in the league. And then the Jets at number 31, they lose again. I will say something nice about them. Aaron Glenn has gotten this defense now back-to-back weeks playing well. That's what Aaron Glenn was brought in here to do, so at least some green lights being hit with the new head coach there, but this quarterback situation, an unmitigated disaster. Even Justin Fields truthers are giving up on him, and that's saying a lot. Well, at least most of Justin Fields truthers are giving up on him. I do wonder if the Jets might make some phone calls and see if they don't want to waste the second half of the year here with Tyrod Taylor. With all due respect to Tyrod, I really respect him as a career, backup and all that, but it's a transition season here for the Jets. Maybe bring in a Davis Mills on the back end of his rookie deal, or a Malik Willis, or a Will Levis, or, even give Seattle a call about Jalen Milroe, something like that, just to kind of take another dart throw at the QB thing, because obviously the Justin Fields thing didn't work out. But then at number 30, the Las Vegas Raiders. They are going to drop down into the super mega booty tier. They are down bad, just as bad as these other teams at this point in time. I mean, they missed Brock Bowers, but that shouldn't explain why they've looked so incompetent on both sides of the ball for so much of this season. I think Pete Carroll actually needs to be getting a lot more criticism, and maybe in Raiders circles he is. But it's kind of flown under the radar how bad of a job he's done instilling a winning culture with the Raiders, which was kind of supposed to be the point. And then talk about bad cultures. The Miami Dolphins get boat raced in Cleveland. The losing in bad weather meme on the Miami Dolphins gets funnier and funnier every single time. Tua Turn the Ball Over made a full appearance in Cleveland this week. I'm not sure if he's going to be starting moving forward. Now you've got McDaniel turning to Quinn Ewers as some desperation heave to save his job. It's ugly in Miami. No two ways to slice it. But then we'll climb up into just the booty tier, and I'm going to have the New Orleans Saints here. I think they still deserve credit for being respectable in so many of their games in a way that the four teams we just discussed haven't. But this was the first time that I think Spencer Rattler really looked like the bad version of Spencer Rattler that you could have imagined coming into the year. We'll see if he can bounce back, but after a 6 turnover-worthy play performance in Chicago, if he continues to play somewhat close to that, it might be Tyler Shook time in New Orleans. But then at number 27, the Cleveland Browns, who took advantage of the Dolphins in bad weather. A feel-good week for the Browns. Quinshon Judkins, a great first half there. The defense doing their job. Not going to give the Browns too much credit here for taking down Miami. And there just weren't other teams that I felt comfortable raising them above at this point in time. So they're going to stay put at number 27, but they're kind of a frisky, bad team. Then the New York Giants. Oh, God, Giants fans. I don't think I could do it if I were a Giants fan, man. You see the Saints game 3 weeks ago where they fumble the ball 3 times. That loses them a game that they should have won. And then this week against the Broncos, where you blow a 19-0 lead, just completely collapsing in the fourth quarter. 3 quarters of great defense against Bo Nix and the Broncos in Denver. Looks like you're going to, maybe spark this season after beating the Eagles last week and this week beating the Broncos, and then that happens, it's just really hard to see. For what it's worth, I don't think Jackson Dart played well in this game. I think there was some busted plays by the Broncos defense, but a lot of mistakes by Jackson Dart. And at this point in the season, that's kind of what this is about, is just evaluating him. I mean, he's going to get a chance, presumably, to be their starter next year, obviously, but that's just kind of where the Giants are at right now. I just don't know what Brian Daboll can do at this point to save his job and, recapture this season or anything like that. Even if it's a frisky team that's not going to be easy to beat, they have a lot of scattered talent. But yeah, I'm running out of things to say for the Giants. It's just kind of breathtaking what they've done to themselves this year. All right, before we go to our next tier, I want to thank the sponsor for today's Power Rankings, Underdog Fantasy. Of course, most of you know at this point, Underdog and their Pick'em contests is the perfect pairing with NFL games. But with NBA tipping off today, Underdog wants to remind you that it's not just football on Underdog. You can play whatever sport you want. Obviously, NBA, MLB playoffs. You can even go do esport pick'ems if you want. And with the NBA just starting, you still have a little bit of time before the season starts to do some best ball drafts on Underdog, which are a ton of fun and another chance to win some money. But if you've thought about signing up on Underdog, now is a great time to do it. With the NBA tip-off, they are offering a Kevin Durant gimme pick for your pick'em contests, and you can still take advantage of the last week of Boost-tober here in this month of October, where you get unlimited Profit Boost tokens to get even greater payouts on your lineups. My favorite way to take advantage of that is to flex your favorite player stats up or down to get the better chance at them hitting. And then the profit boost comes back on the back end and makes up for the profit loss that you normally would take when you flex those numbers around. So if you sign up using code TFG right now, you can take advantage of all the great promotions Underdog has right now and have some fun and a chance to win some money. Please play responsibly and good luck. All right, time to take a look at my favorite tier in these power rankings, Schrodinger's box of cats. Did the full summary of what this tier means last week. But to give a very hastily summary to those unfamiliar with this tier is a reference to the Austrian physicist Erwin Schrodinger, who theorized about a quantum physics experiment that featured a cat inside a box with a contraption that may or may not trigger and kill the cat. Schrodinger described this cat inside the box to be considered in a state of superposition. In other words, the cat should be considered both alive and dead. In a football terms, these teams are in a mystery box, and we still need to see how they're going to look when we open up this box in a few weeks. Are they going to be dead? Does this team go in the wrong direction, or do they still have a chance to figure things out and come out very much alive and get into the playoff mix? And this is the largest Schrodinger's box of cats I think I've ever had in the years of having this tier in these power rankings. I have 9 teams in the middle cluster of this NFL. That is really emblematic of what this season has looked like. But let's get into it. So the Arizona Cardinals at number 25, they're going to drop down just a spot here. I tweeted this out. This is the best 2-5 football team I can ever remember. They have lost 5 straight games now by a combined score of 13 points. Their plus minus on the season is -1, and in all 5 of those games, they've been decided in the last 30 seconds. Just a heartbreaking season for the Cardinals and Cardinals fans to know that this isn't a horrible football team, but clearly their inability to finish these games late is a huge problem. And at the end of the day, Jonathan Gannon's defense has not taken that step in year 3 that you would have hoped for. The defensive line has been better, but I hoped it would be much better with all of the different moves and players coming back from injury that they got. The offense, I think, has been about what's been expected, but it's been those defensive shortcomings that's really been, in the grand scheme of things, the disappointment on this Cardinals team. And you pair that with the fact that you've had so many questionable coaching moments in these close games, and you really got to beg the question of how much longer Jonathan Gannon should be around here. It is fun to see Jacoby Brissett balling out, though. It's a reminder of the last time he was treated as a starting quarterback in Cleveland in a Drew Petzing offense. He played like a top 20 QB that year, and then the entire league just seemingly forgot about him. It's good to see him get an opportunity again and show that he can still play. I love Jacoby Brissett. But then the Cincinnati Bengals at number 24. A massive jump this week, tied for our highest riser in the rankings and climbing up another tier here. That's back-to-back weeks. They have climbed up a tier, and the Joe Flacco addition has just proved to be kind of a genius move by this front office. I'm willing to give them that credit. I didn't think this would work out to this level, and dude, I want to ask Ravens fans, is this the best regular season football Joe Flacco has ever played? I mean, obviously he had that Super Bowl run, but this is like surgical high-level quarterbacking we're seeing from Joe Flacco within 10 days of getting here. I know he has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and that obviously helps, but the way that he's reading coverages, throwing the football precisely, avoiding mistakes especially, that's what's really surprised me. I mean, even in his comeback player of the year season in Cleveland, it was, a play action oriented offense where he was just taking deep shots to Amari Cooper and they turned the ball over a bunch. That's not what we're seeing here. This is like methodical, high-end veteran quarterbacking, just so blown away. And it's made the Bengals a real football team again in a way that they weren't for the few weeks with Jake Browning there. The defense still stinks. The Bengals are a long way away from saying their season is definitely saved, but it's at least interesting again, and they're definitely in the box of cats in the sense of, when Joe Burrow's ready to go, when we open up that box, is this team going to be in a position in a, tuned down AFC, and even in the AFC North, this was a big win to take from the Steelers, could prove to be, at least when we get to the end of the season. But yeah, they've made things interesting to see if they can keep them in position for another month and a half plus until Joe Burrow might come back here. But then the Carolina Panthers at number 23, they get their third straight win here. That's obviously great to see, and man, I don't remember the last time we saw the Panthers with a winning record. So they're building up some things here. They're heading in the right direction. As far as the power rankings go, they are actually losing a spot. There's another team that has just simply impressed me more and is getting healthy. But that's not to take away from what the Panthers are doing. I think the defense especially really settling in. Ejiro Evero has done a really brilliant job with that unit. They're defending the run just miles better than they were last year, and that's allowed them to scheme up some blitzes and get after the QB a little bit more in third and pass situations. You get these more opportunistic J.C. Horn interception opportunities. Was just unbelievable this week against the Jets. Offense far from perfect right now, and Bryce Young looks like he's going to miss a couple weeks, so you don't love to see that. I think the Panthers still have a lot to prove. They have the Packers and Bills coming up these next couple of weeks. But at 4-3, they are in the mix, which I think Panthers fans will take right now, especially after where they've been and even how this season started. But then the Houston Texans at number 22, essentially just straight back to how I felt about them before their little mini winning streak there, right? When they were 0-3. They're just interesting because they did beat up on some bad teams, right? They dominated Tennessee and Baltimore when they were so beat up. They won that game 44-10. Then they have the bye week and they have to go to Seattle. Another one of these teams that's just brilliant at running blitzes and twists and stunts. And you just see that this offense cannot function with the offensive line in the state that it is. Their play calling is also terrible. I think Nick Caley has probably been the worst offensive coordinator in the league this year. It's crazy to say, I wonder what Bobby Slowick is doing these days. I think he's a quarterback coach in Miami, but as bad as you thought it was with Bobby Slowick, it has gotten worse here. I still love this defense, and I'm not quite ready to entirely quit this Texans team because I do think you can at least, if you want one saving grace, 3 of their 4 losses have probably come against the 3 most diabolical pass rush designers in terms of running twists and blitzes and stuff. With the Rams, the Bucks, and the Seahawks, those 3 defensive coaches are all certainly up there in regards to that. And that's really where Houston runs into problems is the math of it all and the scheming of it all. I think there are still probably brighter days ahead for Houston, but God, it was tough to watch that offensive outing where their defense gave them every opportunity to come back and beat the Seahawks. and they just couldn't capitalize. And it's not the thing is, like, there's bad offensive lines that, like, the pass protection really stands out as miserable, and that's the case in Houston. But it's like double whammy in terms of not being able to run the ball. I feel like a lot of bad offensive lines are looked at for their bad pass protection, but they're at least like maybe adequate or at least below average in terms of run blocking. Houston is downright miserable in both categories, and it's again, just unwatchable offense right now. And I feel so bad for CJ Stroud having to deal with this a second year in a row. But then I have the Washington Commanders, also a disappointing week. They're falling down 6 spots and falling out of that playoff fringe tier, down into the 20s here. They're 3-4, and this is really like a worst case scenario for what myself and many people kind of predicted for this team in terms of having a regression back to the mean for this team after their kind of Cinderella run last year. They're frankly in a pretty tough spot right now. I didn't shy away from pointing out in their season preview that, look, it's amazing what they did, and Jaden Daniels is incredible, but this roster is just not very good, and they got a lot of things to go their way in that Lions game. I like the analogy that they rolled a 20 on a 20-sided die to win that game, just with Lions being hurt, Lions having uncharacteristic mistakes, and then for the Commanders, like guys that hadn't been big factors for them during the season having monster games, guys like Jonathan Allen, Jamison Crowder, Quan Martin, figuring they weren't going to get those types of performances every week based on how we felt about those players. And then unfortunately for Washington, after going to the NFC Championship, they kind of like convinced themselves that they were better than they really were. Trading away draft picks, adding a lot of veteran talent to this team, and they just feel slow, really on both sides of the ball. They definitely missed Terry McLaurin. That injury has compounded things, but I don't think that would really make all of the difference in the world. Like, clearly this defense is in a bad spot with a lack of a pass rush in the secondary, and these linebackers, frankly, they're all really struggling. And you're just seeing like, okay, Jaden Daniels, he's been injured, and when he's played, there's been some flashes of that elite version of Jaden Daniels, but like he just hasn't been what he was in his rookie season, which was like genuinely elite quarterbacking. He hasn't been playing at the level that can make up for so many of these deficiencies, and you're left with just kind of a average team. And that's where the Commanders are right now. They're going to have to keep pushing through this season, but I really want to see this front office be a little more realistic with themselves in this offseason and have a bit of a youth movement with this team. Jaden Daniels still super young. I think it would be beneficial for them to take one step back so that in a year or two they can take 2 steps forward. Because right now they don't have those young foundational building blocks with this roster, and that's certainly not helped by the fact that so many opportunities for young players are being roadblocked by players on the other side of 30 that aren't even playing well right now. So it's just not a great spot for the Commanders to be in right now. And with the NFC looking as good as it is, they kind of feel like a long shot at this point to rally and be a playoff team to me. But then the Minnesota Vikings at number 20, they're a weird team right now. Like, the defense hasn't been fully trustworthy. I still love Brian Flores, but you're definitely starting to get a little more worried about the talent base that he has to work with that looked really good on paper heading into the year with a really balanced unit, but like Jonathan Grenard has taken a step back. Andrew Van Ginkel hasn't been healthy for them, so their pass rush has actually taken a step back despite them signing a pair of interior rushers. And the secondary struggling, man. Isaiah Rodgers, really a tough week. I know he had that great game against the Bengals, but Eagles took advantage of him. Their safety room, I think they are missing Cam Bynum's presence on the back end there. So that's just put a lot more pressure on this offense that has had O-line injuries. And, Carson Wentz's like drive to drive. I do think he's playing better than J.J. McCarthy was playing. If that weren't the case, I think we would have seen J.J. McCarthy this week against the Eagles. We're going to see Wentz again on Thursday. But it's not like he's playing well. He's playing like a quality backup, I would say. But yeah, they're just mid, man. They are the definition of mid right now. I still like this coaching staff to make some adjustments, and hopefully this team continues to get healthier and healthier. And maybe we do see JJ McCarthy kind of rekindle the hope he had heading into the year. This wasn't like a bad loss against the Eagles or anything like that. It just, I don't really know where to go with this Vikings team right now. But then the Chicago Bears, they rip off their 4th straight win. And I think coming in at 19 here, the Bears fans are not going to be satisfied with this ranking. Look, beating the Saints at home on a day where Spencer Rattler shat himself, I just don't feel that different about the Bears. I still think Caleb, I'll be honest, is playing inconsistent football. The defense is playing much better. That's what's good to see. That is what gets them now into the teens. They have been steadily climbing in these rankings. I think the pass rush has been solid, frankly, with Montez Sweat and Gervon Dexter. Jaquan Brisker has really come on as of late. They've settled down in the secondary with Wright having a good game here against the Saints. And man, it has felt like the Dennis Allen of it all has made an impact here for the Bears. I loved that signing as a DC. It feels like he's getting more familiar with what he needs to do with his talent base to make this a better team. So honestly, I've been more impressed by the Bears' defense as of late than their offense. I think the offense has done a good job putting enough points on the board to win these games and capitalizing off of the ridiculous amount of turnovers that this Bears defense is forcing. I do still think the turnovers inevitably will come down. Bears fans will complain about me saying that, but I've been doing this for a long time at this point, and turnover regression is the most guaranteed thing in this sport. Whether it's calling a certain cornerback or a safety overrated because all they're doing is getting a few picks, or saying a defense is inevitably not going to get this many turnovers, where the Bears right now are forcing like 2 a week. That's going to come down, and when it does, the offense is going to have to play more efficiently. So, that's kind of where the Bears are at. I think they're a very solid team. They're clearly heading in the right direction, but I want to see more consistency from Caleb and this passing game before I view them as more of a playoff caliber, playoff fringe team. But they're definitely getting there. It's just beating the Saints isn't going to be the week that I make that jump for them. This week, they have to go to Baltimore and play Lamar. If they can win that game, guarantee they are going to jump up a tier here next week and climb out of Schrodinger's box of cats. But then a team heading in the wrong direction, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags fans, I'm sorry that I probably cursed you by making a video about you. But yeah, their deficiencies in the passing game have killed them the last 2 weeks. Trevor Lawrence obviously not playing well. His inaccuracies continue to be a frustration. But the drops, this team has 23 drops this year, which is by far the most in the NFL. Just absolutely brutal. Brian Thomas Jr. has taken a full regression in terms of hands and ball skills. It's not just the drops, but it's the lack of contested catch wins as well when Trevor has trusted him as the number 1 wide receiver. The defense, they gave up ultimately 35 to the Rams, but I think that was even more of a reflection of just like, okay, they're not a perfect defense for sure, but like they were on the field constantly, and the Rams kept getting opportunities because this offense kept, giving them short fields with failed 4th downs and all that. But what I'm saying is I still think this Jags team, at 4-3, there's still a few things they do well. I still think this is a solid defense, and they can run the football. It's just this week, on top of their passing game, just, again, shooting themselves in the foot. I couldn't believe that Liam Cohen just refused to run the football when they are a top 10 rushing team in terms of efficiency, and ETN has looked as good as he has. It was a mind-numbing performance in that London game. And then the last thing is, good things happen when they throw the ball vertically to Travis Hunter. I think it's time that they really look in the mirror and fully unleash him offensively. They're 3 for 3 for 100 yards and a touchdown when they've targeted Travis Hunter deep, but they've just done it 3 times. He is that good. Lean into him. I don't get it. Very frustrating couple of weeks for the Jags that do have some good wins on their resume, right? This team is just a couple weeks away from beating the Niners and then beating the Chiefs to get to 4-1. So this cat is definitely dropping into the box of cats, and they're going to have to, take a U-turn here. They are plummeting at the moment. But then I have the Dallas Cowboys at number 17. They are also tied with the Bengals for my biggest risers this week. They get fully healthy this week, man. Not just getting CeeDee Lamb, which is obviously huge, watching this offense, it is. I had the thought this week: are the Cowboys just the NFC Bengals? The team with a great quarterback, obviously Burrow, you would rank him above Dak, but Dak is playing, maybe at the highest level of any quarterback in the league this year. I'm not saying he is the best quarterback in the league, but he absolutely has an argument for who's been the best QB from start to finish this season. But you have that QB paired with, this incredible wide receiver duo. And I think Pickens is even playing at a level higher than T. Higgins, and that's no disrespect to T. Higgins. It's more of a credit to the level Pickens is playing at right now. But the parallel to the Bengals there is obviously you've got the QB wide receiver duo in this insane offense, but your defense stinks, and you have a ownership group that can't get out of your own way. So that's who Dallas is. They're going to have to win every game, putting up 30-plus points, but they can do that. Now, we saw in that Panthers game that, their margin for error is thin. If you slip up on a 3rd and 1 or, waste a drive with bad play calling, not that Schottenheimer is prone to that. I think Schottenheimer's doing a good job, but that's just the NFL, right? If you make a couple slip-ups on offense, all of a sudden you can lose the game 33-30. So that's where Dallas is at. But, you get CD back this week. I was saying, though, there's another side of this team getting healthy, and that's the offensive line, man. They get Tyler Booker back. He looks fantastic. They're healthy on that offensive line, and they do have a run game with Javonte Williams playing as well as he's playing this year too. So, Dallas has at worst a top 3 offense in the NFL this year, but they have a bottom 3 defense. So for them to come in around the 17 spot as a 3-1 team, I think makes sense. They're far from through the woods. That's why they're in this box of cats tier. I need to see this for yet another week because I do think Washington is really down bad right now. I don't know that I'm ready to call Dallas a playoff contender or anything like that, but they're pretty damn close to that right now, getting healthy and the offense continuing to look as good as they have. So they are shooting up in these ranks. But that is going to conclude, sadly, Schrodinger's box of cats. We are now into the playoff fringe category. And frankly, I struggled going back and forth a bunch with how to kind of blend Schrodinger's box of cats with this playoff fringe tier. I think you can make an argument that any of the 4 teams that will come in this playoff fringe category should be in that last tier. But I did ultimately decide that either the resume of these teams or my belief in these teams to play better moving forward was just a slight cut above. So at number 16, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They obviously have a really bad loss to the Bengals on Thursday Night Football, where their defense, not for the first time this season, looked horrible. Now, their defense has looked great at times, and I still do have a level of confidence that they're not going to give up 30-plus points every single week. I just believe in my heart of hearts that's not who the Steelers are. And it wasn't all bad in that loss to the Bengals because the offense has woken up, and Aaron Rodgers, frankly, is playing really good football right now. And I do think that matters as a positive takeaway from that Bengals game. I'm obviously not trying to pound the table and say it's all rainbows and butterflies for the Steelers, but I do trust them to continue on as a pretty steady kind of playoff contending type of team, and they are also in a very good position still in the AFC North to just take care of business. But they've got to clean some stuff up on defense, man. Their intermediate pass defense is a serious issue. Miscommunications. Patrick Queen has no idea what he's looking at as a coverage linebacker. Their safeties are slow. And the lack of adjustments from this defense to just be so stubborn to just say, we're going to run what we run, that's probably not going to change, but it is a drawback of this defense. And I do think a little bit less, for sure, of this defensive coaching staff after that Bengals game. So a -1 for the Steelers as they drop to 4-2. And then the Atlanta Falcons at number 15. Just a disappointing week, to say the least. Pretty much everybody was picking them to go and beat the Niners, where it looked like the Niners were heading in the wrong direction. The Falcons were trending up after a win against the Bills, and it completely flips on its head. I will say it because of Michael Penix. He did not play well against the Niners. That's putting it lightly. And it's not the first time this season where you've watched them and just kind of been like, on Michael Penix.
obviously Bijan's amazing, and this defense is doing what they can. I think Raheem Morris continues to deserve credit for, him and Jeff Ulbrich deserve credit for getting this unit to play well. But they did show some deficiencies with their run defense this week, with Christian McCaffrey running rampant on this group with kind of a undersized, I would just describe them as a pass rushing oriented front, with the way that they both scheme and have crafted their front with mostly undersized interior players and frankly undersized edge rushers as well. A team that depends on stunts and all of that stuff within their scheme up front. Well, the Niners took advantage of that and just kind of drove them back in this game. So you found a way to kind of attack this Falcons defense. But at the end of the day, like, Michael Penix has to play better, man. The processing, the pocket presence, the accuracy, there are consistent knocks across the board. He's played some great games, and he's had some absolute stinkers in there too. So they're going to get a -3 this week. They've had some impressive wins this season, and they've had some really frustrating losses. This is a tough team to know where things are going to go. And again, for that reason, you could argue they belong in Schrodinger's box of cats, but just a week away from looking as good they did against the Buffalo Bills, I'm going to hold on to them at this spot in this tier, at least for another week. But then the LA Chargers at 14, they're going up 4 spots here this week. And I know it's kind of awkward because the defense looked horrible this week. The Colts just ran rampant on their defense. They got to clean that up. I do have a lot of trust in Jesse Minter to do that, but their talent base has revealed itself as quite an issue here. But a lot of teams around them just lost, and I feel worse about them than the Chargers moving forward. And they get Joe Alt back this week, the biggest of deals. I can't really understate how big of a difference that's going to make for the offense, having one tackle that you need to kind of scheme around as opposed to both tackles. It just completely changes the math for this offense, and I think they'll get off to much better starts with that. Ultimately, the +4 might feel a little bit awkward after how this week went, but when I break all these teams down, I still feel like this is the right spot for them here, right on the cusp still of straightening this thing out and becoming a playoff team in the AFC. But then the Baltimore Ravens at 13, kind of in the same breath in terms of getting healthy here. Look, I know the 1-5 record looks hideous right now. Reality is they've suffered a quarterback injury, in which case I did plummet them in the rankings, and they looked horrible without Lamar Jackson, who does so much for this football team. But you also have to remember they had a really tough schedule to start the season. They lost some close games against some great teams. Their schedule is getting much easier moving forward. I have the utmost confidence that this is going to be a 6-6 football team before you can blink. I'm obviously not saying this team is all the way back. I still have concerns about their defense, but they did play much better against the Rams just a couple weeks ago. We saw this last year, the defense making some adjustments and playing much better down the stretch. I don't think they're going to be the powerhouse defense that they were at the second half of last year, but I think, this team has earned some benefit of the doubt that they can settle down and not be a bottom 5 defense in the league like they were to start the season. And you pair that with Lamar coming back, I fully anticipate that starting this week against the Chicago Bears, we are back to the Ravens having a powerhouse, damn near unstoppable offense. So I'm probably more comfortable putting the Ravens as a 1-5 team as the number 13 team. But that's kind of my process. I'm talking about where are these teams at this point in time. I'm fully confident to say coming off the bye week, the Ravens are going to be in a position to make this season interesting again for them. Obviously, the standings are something they are going to have to fight against. But as I just kind of stacked these teams up and said, who's better than who heading into this week, this is where I landed on with the Ravens. We'll see where it goes. But that is going to conclude the playoff fringe tier. Let's get into the playoff caliber teams. The 49ers at the number 12 spot. Super impressive week. Just completely bouncing back from that Bucs game where that felt like when Fred Warner goes down, that was it. That was going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for this team and especially for this defense. But what a night for Robert Saleh and all the different players on this team that stepped up, making life hard on Michael Penix and the Falcons. And just some of those moments, seeing Robert Saleh, pumping this team up on the sideline, getting those critical blitz calls that made a difference. Like, he is just doing such a good job with this defense that once you remove the thought that maybe this was going to be a great defense with Nick Bosa and Fred Warner out there, that's probably off the table. But can they be a solid average defense just thanks to their coaching? It seems so. And then you're talking about, all right, they get George Kittle back this week. You feel the impact that made on the run game, certainly. Christian McCaffrey, I think, is looking better and better coming off of his big injury last year. And you've got some reinforcements on the horizon. Maybe Brock Purdy can get you even better quarterback play. That's kind of a different conversation because Mac Jones is playing pretty well. It should be at least a push when Brock Purdy comes back. But Ayuk may be starting to practice soon. Ricky Pearsall's been out for them. Jawan Jennings getting healthier and healthier. This could be the start of something fun for the Niners here. So as they climb to 5-2, they are back into the playoff caliber tier for me. And then the Denver Broncos at number 11. They're going to drop 2 spots here with the comeback win against the Giants. Look, they still have some issues here, clearly. They have to find a way to start these games faster so that they're not in comeback mode as they've been in a couple of these games. Bo Nix is in this weird spot where it's like, how much do you criticize him for the slow starts and how much credit do you give him for these outstanding fourth quarter performances against the Giants and the Eagles? At the end of the day, as the dust settles from that crazy Giants game, I don't feel that different about Denver, but there are a couple other teams that have impressed me more, and that's why you're seeing the -2 on the Broncos. And one of those teams is the New England Patriots. And I know it was Tennessee this week, but they are on a run of just looking like one of the better teams in the league. And that started by beating the Buffalo Bills, taking first place in that AFC East. But, I mean, the defense is playing well with Mike Vrabel. The offensive line has hit some green lights. Like Will Campbell, you've hardly had to think about him. He's playing very solid. These receivers are settling in. Like Kayshon Boutte's developing into a really nice number 2 wide receiver. You got Pop Douglas. You got Stephon Diggs. These tight ends are sweet. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, Drake May is playing like an absolute demon. He has legitimately, if you just take the last 3 weeks, you do the alien test, and you bring in an alien, a ball-knowing alien from the skies, and you haven't watched the last 3 weeks, and you ask him, who's the best quarterback in the NFL just off the last 3 weeks? I think the answer is probably Drake May. The dude is playing unstoppable football right now, and that's just going to see this team rising and rising and rising. So I've been really, really impressed with the New England Patriots. And then the Seattle Seahawks. They get a +1 this week as well. It's tough to climb up above a lot of these top teams as so many of them continue to play well. This was another big win for the Seahawks, and this is back-to-back weeks where you're really feeling that Mike Macdonald factor. Like, this defense has taken that next leap. And I know they showed some signs of this late last season, but you wanted to see that fully establish itself into this season. And they had some hiccups defensively to start this year, certainly, but the last 2 weeks they have been dominant. Mike Macdonald is feeling like the, premium defensive mind in the league that the, inside the league they kind of perceive him as. The way he's scheming up blitzes and getting free rushers and moving these guys around and helping to get the most out of, a talented group up front, it's just eye-opening. And you also get some guys back healthy in the secondary. They're scary on that side of the ball. Now, frankly, I would bump them up even higher this week if not for some of the just red flags with Sam Darnold in this game. Bunch of turnovers. And I still trust what the offense is doing. And Darnold did have some excellent plays in this game. A couple of just unbelievable throws to JSN. The touchdown and that fade down the left sideline. Like, I still trust this offense to be a good unit. But I'd probably bump the Seahawks up at least over this next team, who they lost to like a week ago in the Bucks. Spoiler alert. But I'd probably bump them up to the number 8 spot, if not for some of the red flags with Darnold down the stretch. The horrible fumble for the touchdown, a couple of the picks. I think Darnold's playing amazing this year. I even tweeted in the first quarter of this game that Darnold's been the best QB in the league this year, and it immediately you see some of the mistakes that Darnold can make at times. I'm not panicking about it. I still think he's playing great football, but it's just not great to see. I don't know how you could assess that otherwise, given his history But still, +1 for the Seahawks, climbing up each and every week here. And then the Tampa Bay Bucks plummeting down into this tier outside of our top tier, where I moved them up into last week, a -5 for the Bucks. And I wish I would have just trusted my gut a little bit more last week. The consensus wave was the Bucks are the best team in the league. I was low on the Bucks when I ranked them 3 last week. Ultimately, this was obviously a coming back to earth moment for the Bucks. Not that they're a bad team, but that they're not the best team in the NFL. I always felt like with all the injuries racking up, counting on Baker to play like the MVP was just going to be tough. Like I think Baker has earned so much benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to be doing my QB tiers video this week. I think Bucks fans will be pretty happy with his placement in that video here this week. But watching the Bucks, it had just felt a little bit unstable in the sense that they were hitting the high end of outcomes on so many of these crazy scrambles and throws and getting out of dangerous situations in the pocket. We felt a full regression to that this week. A lot more sacks and Baker just, it felt like any inaccurate throws that weren't there in the first 6 weeks where Baker's just been so on the money, they all came like crashing in this week against Detroit. And now it's like if you just added up his missed throws on the season, you would say that's about right, even though they pretty much all came in one game. And now I think the Bucks really right back to where I had them ranked before last week. Feels like they're back in the right spot. I think the defense, if there's a positive takeaway from this Lions game, I know Jahmyr Gibbs got some big plays on them. It's going to happen. It's this Lions offense. They're going to find a way to attack you. But I think overall, the Bucks defense did a good job making Jared Goff uncomfortable. You go back a week ago to what they did against the Niners. Todd Bowles, I think, is doing a great job with this defense, and they got a lot of players on that side of the ball. But yeah, offensively, it's like I think Baker comes back to something closer to how he played in the first 6 weeks of the season. I still have a lot of trust in this offense to be able to move the ball. Like Buka should get healthier and healthier. Obviously, it's a gut punch that you're not going to get Mike Evans back for a while here, but hopefully Bucky Irving on the horizon soon. That's a big player missing for them as well. So it shouldn't be all doom and gloom after a loss to Detroit. It's just they weren't the best team in football at that point in time, and I think we did see a tier difference there between a team like Detroit and Tampa. But then at number 7. What to do about the Indianapolis Colts as they climb to 6-1. They have a record-breaking offense right now under Daniel Jones. And another big win going out to LA and just boat racing that defense. And I don't know if I'm just overly stubborn at this point to not put them in my Super Bowl contenders tier. I'm curious if you guys would do that. You'll have to let me know in the comments. Honestly, if the defense was better, I would feel a lot more comfortable doing that because I do trust that what they have offensively is sustainable. Like Daniel Jones aside, I mean, this is probably the most dominant offensive infrastructure in the league right now, from play caller to O-line to running game to playmakers. But the resume also, they're killing these teams, but it's, okay, Miami, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Arizona. This was a good win against the Chargers for sure. They squeaked that one out against Denver early in the season. I guess it's just in my heart of hearts with this being such a surprise kind of Cinderella team this year. And keep in mind, if anybody should be victory lapping and dunking on everybody for being right about the Colts, I think it would be me. I really felt like I was the high man on the Colts coming into the year. Had them as a potential surprise playoff team. I defended the move to bench Anthony Richardson and go to Daniel Jones. Everybody thought I ranked them too high coming into the year. So if anybody should be victory lapping on this team, it would be me. But I do think in my heart of hearts, it's if I'm going to put them in the top tier, I kind of want to see them beat a top tier team. The hard thing here is they're probably just going to keep winning. I mean, their next 3 games, they got Tennessee again, at Pittsburgh and Atlanta. We'll see if I pull the trigger on moving them up into that top tier in that time. If they just keep scoring 38 points every single week, eventually the dam's going to break. I'm going to have to put them up there, I think. But at Kansas City, week 12, it's going to be a game that we're going to have circled on our calendars for sure. But that is going to conclude my playoff caliber tier, and this is where we're going to get into the Super Bowl contenders and maybe some shorter conversations on these top tier teams, because I think we feel pretty good about where these teams are. It's been pretty much the same teams at the top throughout the course of the season here, with just some slight movement. But Buffalo's going to be at number 6. We'll see how they bounce back after the bye week. Obviously, they are coming off a couple of rough weeks here, but I do think as low as I am on McDermott and this defense, this is about as much praise as you'll hear me say on them. I do think they can at least settle down and be a little bit better defensively, but especially offensively. I mean, they have had some uncharacteristic struggles these last couple of weeks. I just think Josh Allen has built up so much benefit of the doubt to say that they're going to get back to dominating offensively here moving forward. If they come out and that's not the case, we will adjust accordingly. But I still really like the Bills this year. Then I've got the Green Bay Packers. They're going to drop down a spot after another unconvincing win here. They pull this one out against Arizona. Like, obviously, the defense continues to show that if you challenge this secondary, they're going to let guys get open and they're going to struggle to make plays on the ball. It's extremely frustrating to watch this defense because it feels like they're an elite defense unless you just throw contested catch opportunities. That's 3 straight weeks where receivers have been just mossing these DBs. And the analytics back it up. They're allowing a 62% contested catch win percentage over the last 3 weeks, which is horrible. I mean, league average is going to be about 46 or so. Feels like that should come back to earth for Green Bay, but at the same time, this is not a talented secondary on paper. So there's a way to attack this defense. But the defense still shut the door on the Cardinals in this game, and Micah Parsons was, I mean, there's unbelievable is an understatement. I mean, to say he was unbelievable would be an understatement. He took over that game, and it's a reminder, like, with him out there, you're still going to get some plays defensively one way or another. It is also worth noting they've been without Devontae Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness these last couple of weeks. That should help getting those guys back as well. But needless to say, like, yeah, there's ways to attack this defense. It's not this god squad of a defense. But even with some of those knocks on the defense, they've made up for it and added some of that team balance with how well the offense is playing right now. So they are dropping. They're dropping -1 as really a couple teams are passing them up here. They still have some proving to do as they hopefully get healthier and healthier as a team. But I still think they're in a pretty good spot here. Also, by the way, with the second best record in football. But then I've got the LA Rams at number 4, jumping up 2 spots. I mean, what an impressive win against the Jags. Matthew Stafford, so locked in that game. Just surgical, picking that defense apart, looking very comfortable within this Rams offense, even without Puka Nacua. I love what this defense is capable of with Chris Shula and that D-line. And I like that this week they tried something different in their goal line, situations, throwing those fades to Devontae Adams. That's been their biggest drawback, is short yardage and red zone and goal line. They need to find some answers, and I like that because I feel like Sean McVay is probably keeping some plays in his back pocket for the biggest situations, which isn't going to be when you're up multiple scores on the Jaguars in a Week 7 London game. But working on some of those back shoulders as an option as well, where it's not necessarily a scheme thing. It's just man on man, go make a throw, go make a catch, go make a play. I like that that's now in their back pocket, a couple of those to Devontae Adams. But then the Eagles at number 3, I mean, they got to climb up, man. Jalen Hurts playing so well in this game. I mean, it's like this game and that Super Bowl against the Chiefs are, to me, the signature best performances of his career. I've never seen Jalen Hurts with as good of pocket presence as he showed against the Vikings. If that's the start of something where he has a better sense of like buying time to throw instead of kind of bailing out of clean pockets and throwing the ball away as much as he had earlier in the season and really throughout his career, that could be a big deal. We'll keep an eye on that, but just gaining that confidence, being able to get both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith involved, really encouraging to see. I mean, this Eagles team we know is a powerhouse, and they kind of felt like it against a pretty solid Vikings team this week in a big bounce back game after getting just, a night to burn the tape against the Giants a week ago. Hopefully for the Eagles, what we saw in week 7 is a sign of more things to come as opposed to the week 6 Eagles. But then at number 2, the Detroit Lions, they take care of business against the Bucs. I had kind of an aggressive take on the weekly preview show last week where I said I think the Lions, who never lose back-to-back games on primetime football in their own stadium, I think they dominate the Bucs, and that's really what happened. The offense did have some moments of stalling, some more like, pass protection not being as good as it was last year type of stuff. Like, they're not a perfect team, but dude, the defense with Ali McNeil coming back, he was making some plays. That definitely made the difference you were hoping it would. And if they can just continue to get healthier and healthier in the secondary, Detroit is going to be extremely dangerous, as we know they are capable of. And then the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1. Really happy I jumped them up there last week, as this week, it felt like confirmation that they are fully back after I kind of said they were last week. Playing with their food against the Raiders, Patrick Mahomes, giving the Raiders defensive line acting lessons in the middle of the game with that 4th and short situations for those that caught that. Very entertaining. But yeah, Rashee Rice made the impact you were hoping he would coming back. The Chiefs defense continues to roll. They definitely look like the best team in football, and you could even argue that we could create a second tier for the Chiefs that do feel like the most complete team right now. Maybe they start to pull away throughout the next couple of weeks, and we do that for them. But going to keep them in that top Super Bowl contenders tier right now as they climb to 4-3. So that is going to do it for the Week 8 Power Rankings. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please do hit that like button down below if you haven't yet. It really does help me out. Drop your comments as well, what you thought of the rankings this week, where I went right, where I went wrong. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Cheers.